Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a stack of sources you sent over geopolitical analysis, some diplomatic notes, and they all point to what can only be described as, an unprecedented crisis.
A full-blown standoff, really.
Exactly. A diplomatic and military standoff between the United States, Denmark, and at the center of it all, Greenland.
And this isn't the usual story we cover. This is not about traditional enemies.
No, it's about loyalty, turning toxic. The sources seem to argue that Europe is caught in this high-stakes drama with the one nation that's guaranteed its security for, what, 70 years?
Yeah, and that's the core of it. The material really frames this entire situation around a single powerful concept.
The dangerous friend doctrine. It pulls from that old Henry Kissinger quote. To be an enemy of America can be dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. Okay, let's unpack this, because the argument laid out in these papers is that Europe is experiencing that fatal friendship right now, in real time.
And that idea is, absolutely crucial. For decades, Europe's entire defense posture has been built around the U.S. They've paid huge sums in security guarantees, assuming that bought them protection.
Absolute protection.
But what the sources we analyze are saying is that this very reliance, this, decades-long friendship, is now their biggest vulnerability. The U.S. is using that security dependence to force their hand on policy.
Even when it goes completely against European interests.
Exactly. So our mission here is to figure out why this pressure suddenly crystallized around Greenland, of all places.
And the central demand, when you read it, it's just astounding. The sources say this whole crisis is being driven by one goal from U.S. President Donald Trump: to make Greenland the 51st state.
Just like that. It's not just about a piece of land, though. We have to look at why Greenland is so important.
Right.
The material points to three things. First, its location. It controls these emerging Arctic shipping lanes, super important as the ice melts.
The new shortcuts between Asia and Europe.
Precisely. Second, Thule Air Base. It's the U.S. military's northernmost base, critical for missile defense and, space surveillance.
And the third one is the big one: resources. Minerals.
Huge, largely untapped deposits of rare earth minerals.
The kind you need for everything from iPhones to fighter jets.
Right. So securing those and keeping them away from rivals is a massive strategic prize.
So with that context, the negotiations were intense, to say the least. An emergency meeting with Trump, the Danes, Greenlandic officials.
The stakes couldn't have been higher, and the European response was, well, it was basically desperation.
They tried to solve it with money, just throw a huge pile of cash at it.
Hundreds of billions of dollars. The sources are clear on that. An unprecedented amount offered in these so-called security guarantee payments just to, keep the status quo.
I mean, can you imagine that conversation? Please, just take our money and leave us alone.
It was an attempt to prove the relationship was still worth it economically, to kind of shame the U.S. back into the old alliance structure.
But it failed. Completely.
Yeah. Trump just refused the money. The reports say he was totally firm.
Which sends a clear message, right?
Yeah.
This isn't about balancing a budget.
No, it's about power. It's about compliance. By swatting away hundreds of billions, Washington signaled the end game was leverage, not profit.
And that failure leads directly to the next phase.
Military escalation. The sources note U.S. Marines and Air Force units started running drills right near Greenland's borders, a very, very public show of force.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and, frankly, a little absurd.
The irony is just off the charts.
For 70 years, NATO's entire purpose is collective defense against Russia. Now, European countries are sending their own troops to Greenland.
Not to fight Russia,
but to protect a fellow NATO partner from the United States.
The sources are brutally honest about this deployment. They call it symbolic and laughable.
Because it is. The numbers are tiny. We have the breakdown here. The UK sent 17 soldiers.
Germany sent 13.
France, 15. The Netherlands, 12. All told, the entire force is something like 120 soldiers.
A tiny force sent to face down a superpower.
So what's the point?
What's fascinating here is the logic behind it. It has nothing to do with defense. 120 soldiers can't stop a Marine unit.
Of course not.
Instead, they're a human tripwire. They are there to guarantee that if the U.S. makes a move on Greenland, it won't be a quiet, clean operation.
It becomes an immediate public attack on multiple NATO countries.
Exactly. The second those troops are interfered with, the NATO alliance effectively ceases to exist. It's over. That deployment is the ultimate political warning. It's a line in the sand.
So we've got the diplomatic breakdown, a massive financial offer rejected, and this symbolic tripwire force. It all begs the question, why? Why risk decades of alliances over one island?
And this is where we need to pivot to the theory presented in the source material, that this entire Greenland crisis is a calculated, manufactured pressure tactic.
Okay, so what's the real goal?
The why, according to the documents we reviewed, is that the U.S. is using the threat of seizing Greenland as extreme leverage.
Leverage for what, exactly?
To force Europe to adopt a much more aggressive foreign policy against China and Iran.
That's a huge leap. Do the sources say the ultimatum was really that explicit? Like, support our wars or we take Greenland?
The formal language was probably more veiled, but the sources strongly suggest the substance of the message was exactly that, uncompromising.
Wow.
Think about it. Europe is still trading heavily with China. They are very, very reluctant to get pulled into a military conflict with Iran. Those policies are in direct conflict with Washington's priorities.
So this crisis is designed to force them to pick a side.
It eliminates the divergence. The U.S. is essentially saying, we will dismantle the security umbrella that protects you unless you align your foreign policy with ours now.
For you listening, this transforms the Greenland situation from just a territorial dispute into a devastating diplomatic weapon.
And it's aimed squarely at forcing Europe's compliance on a global scale. It's forcing a choice between their economic interests and their traditional security guarantor.
And the ripples from this are already spreading. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the instability in NATO is making other countries nervous.
Very nervous. We see it especially in the Middle East. The source material indicates Turkey is already looking for alternatives, moving closer to what the documents call an Islamic NATO.
An Islamic NATO. What does that even mean in this context?
It implies a new defense pact, one that operates completely outside the Western framework. The reports say it involves countries like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan.
So this one crisis is already causing a global reshuffling.
Decades-old structures are fracturing into new blocks, and that leads to maybe the most dramatic detail in all the sources.
A secret diplomacy.
In a desperate move to de-escalate, Europe has reportedly reached out to China.
Not to confront them, but for help.
For secret diplomatic help to mediate the tension with the United States.
Just pause on the irony of that for a second.
It's staggering. Europe, the staunchest U.S. ally through the Cold War, is now asking a primary geopolitical rival, China, to protect it from its best friend.
That action tells you everything you need to know about how scared they are.
It suggests Europe fears being dragged into a war with Iran and China far more than it feels asking Beijing for a favor. They're choosing a tactical partnership with a rival over submission to an ally.
The entire global power structure is shifting right in front of us.
And it confirms the core argument of the source material. The friendship has, in fact, become fatal to Europe's independence.
Okay, let's recap the key points from the sources. A U.S. president demands Greenland. He ignores a peace offering of hundreds of billions of dollars. Europe responds with a symbolic NATO protest, barely 120 soldiers, as a political signal that the alliance is on life support.
And we find out the true motive is leverage, forcing Europe into a hard line against China and Iran.
So what does this all mean? It means alliances that have been rock solid for generations